Hey everybody, thank you for stopping by my channel. For you first timers, please click the subscribe button. And tonight, one of my most requested foods is fried chicken, and I think you'll really enjoy it, and that's what we'll do now. Everybody, first thing you want to do is get your oil heating up, and you want to heat it up till 350 degrees. You can use any kind of pot with a big side. We use canola oil or vegetable oil. Either one turns out really great. Just take any kind of thermometer. It can be digital or analog. Just turn it on. Set your probe inside your oil and let it sit there until it gets to 350. Usually I turn it up to medium high. And when it gets close to 350, I'll turn it down to make it stay at constant 350. Next up, we're gonna cut up our chicken. We've already cut all the skin and bones out of it. You want to cut your chicken to its equal pieces, so when you throw it into your fryer, it will cook evenly. Don't forget to wash your hands because of salmonella. Next up, we're gonna make our batter. It's gonna consist of a cup of milk, 2 eggs, and hot sauce. Now, prior to adding our hot sauce, we'll blend this together and it'll come out to a yellow color. And that's what you want prior to adding your hot sauce. You might have a string of egg yolk, but that's fine also. Now that we have our yellow creamy color, we prefer Texas Pete, and I can't vouch for any other hot sauce, but Texas Pete has always treated us well, and that's what we like using, so that's the route we go. And you want to add just a couple, just enough to turn it to a light red color when you blend it. We need a little more. I think we're all set on our batter. So we'll make our flour base. I use 3 cups of flour. Just pour it into a bowl. Then I take my pepper, and pretty much with 3 cups, you soak the whole top, cover the whole top, because you got a lot of material here that you won't have pepper on. The next thing, you just take your hands and whisk it together. If you feel like you need to add more pepper, this is the time to do so. I feel like we need a little bit more pepper. You want a little flake of pepper still coming through. Alright, see how we have like little flakes of pepper? That's what we're looking for. Next up is seasoning salt. You can use regular house salt, but seasoning salt seems to do the trick. And just like the pepper, you want to take and cover the whole top of the flour that's left. Like so, and then you take and do just like the pepper and blend it together. Now I think that'll be plenty. Next up, you want to take your chicken, put it in your batter, put it in your flour. Where most people make the common mistake, they'll put it right on their plate and ready for the oil. But what I do is go back to the batter and go back to the flour for a second dipping, and then put it on our plate and ready for the oil. Each cycle, what you'll do is take both your hands and hit right here while you're holding a piece of chicken. So it'll be, and I'll demonstrate that now. So you dip it in the batter, roll it around, throw it in your flour, fluff it. This is where you take both your hands and tap them together to knock the loose flour off. Dip them back in your batter. Back in your flour, cover them up, flip them around, give them a tap, and then throw them on your plate and give them, they'll be ready for the oil. Okay, now that our oil is up to 350, usually what I like to do is pick out the biggest pieces and set them in there. It should take about 5 minutes, but that may differ, so we might have to go a little bit longer. And what you want to do is barely stick it in, and don't just drop it, and then just kind of let it slide off your hands. Now that we have our chicken and our oil, one thing we want to make sure is that our oil stays at a kind of constant 350, because if it drops down, it'll just take that much longer for our chicken to cook, and it won't have that golden crisp like you want. One thing you want to make sure is that your chicken doesn't come together and stick together, so you want to make sure you have tongs that are metal, and just kind of make sure they're separated. And one way you can tell that chicken's done is it'll start floating. So 5 minutes from now, we'll see if it's floating, and beyond that, we'll just take the time off. If you cook it for 5 minutes, you can kind of look at it and see that it's going to float. It's floating. And now we'll try to take the biggest piece out, separate it, and make sure it's done. So we know 5 minutes will cook all the rest of this chicken. And that's what we'll do for the rest of the chicken. We'll cook it for 5 minutes, and we'll put it on the plate and have a good meal. And now we're back with our second batch. We'll wait for our temperature to get back up to 350. And once it gets to 350, we'll put our next batch in and wait 5 minutes and wait for them to start floating. Make sure they float. And after we do that, we know it's done. Okay, now that our temperatures are back up at 350, We'll take and throw our second batch in, set our timer for 5 minutes, and the chicken should be good. We'll slowly drop them in. It'll start bubbling. Make sure when you put your second batch in that you take your tongs and kind of separate them so they don't stick together. Usually I like to leave at least an inch of space between each piece of chicken. Not stick together and help them cook evenly. In 5 minutes, our chicken's starting to float. And we'll take it out. We'll break one open just to make sure that it's not pink. And that should be good. Pretty good. We got smaller pieces, so the temperature doesn't necessarily have to be at 350. Ours is at 315, 316. And we'll dump them in there and wait 5 minutes. And they should be good to go. Chicken for 5 minutes, just floating again, and that's how we pretty much know it's done. As you can see from my plate, this chicken was cooked a little above 350 starting out. This one was started at 350, and this one was cooked a little bit below 350 to begin with. You can see the color difference, and that's a good indication. And now we'll sit down and have a delicious meal.